Angel fans, is it unfair for us fans to expect clear and constant communication from our favorite team?
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Why haven't we heard anything from the Angels since the season ended? But other teams, they've communicated very clearly with their fans. And should Barry Enright remain as the Angels pitching coach in 2026? And along those same lines, will Johnny Washington return as the hitting coach in 2026? Before we talk about our favorite team, we want to thank our sponsor, FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5. And if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today.
Happy Friday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we've been talking Angels baseball with you here at Locked On Angels for the last 4 years, last 4 seasons. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. We love talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday, and we want to hear from you. We want you to grade the 2025 roster, and we always do a roster report card after the season is over. We share those results on the show. So get in the episode description, find the link that's there. You'll fill out a Google survey. You'll give each player a rating, say a little something about each player, and then we'll tally up all the results and have that for you on Locked On Angels soon. So I hope that you'll decide to participate in that. And while we love talking Angels baseball, the Angels don't love talking to us. Isn't that right, Mike?
Yeah, why haven't we heard anything? I mean, we haven't heard from our organization, our favorite team, about this last season. We haven't heard from anything from Perry, specifically about Ron Washington being dismissed. We haven't heard anything from Artie about what he's going to do with this team and where they're headed. And so we wondered, is this an expectation that is unreasonable? Well, John and I don't believe that it is. And here's 2 examples, the Diamondbacks and the Mets. Now, the Diamondbacks general manager had a presser on September 30th, John, like right after the season was over, spoke about this team. He said after a disappointing 80 and 82 season, they wanted to make some changes. John, this was a season where the Diamondbacks sold at the deadline, and then they made a run at the end. The last 5 games, they lost them, fell apart. But, John, they were 80 and 77 after selling at the deadline and had an opportunity to maybe get to that 3rd wild card spot. Now, their general manager said that we need to do a better job of putting together a bullpen. I think Torey Lovullo, which is their manager, he and I have talked about this and how they're using the bullpen. We need to do a better job at that. Now, I share that with you because that's one of 2 examples of teams after the season was over communicating with their fans why last season wasn't great and what they're going to do moving forward to be better. Now, the Diamondbacks didn't say, here's what we're going to be doing moving forward. They just talked about like using the bullpen better and also putting a better bullpen together. There's other things that they're going to be doing. They said, we don't know that yet, but we'll communicate that with you. But they weren't the only ones, were they, John? The Mets owner came out and said something, actually released a statement, and I thought it was pretty great.
Yeah, Steve Cohen said, Mets fans everywhere, I owe you an apology. You did your part by showing up and supporting the team. We didn't do our part. We will do a postmortem and figure out the obvious and less obvious reasons why the team didn't perform up to yours and my expectations. We're all feeling very raw emotions today. I know how much time and effort you put into this team. The result was unacceptable. Your emotions tell me how much you care and continues to motivate the organization to do better. Thank you to the best fans in sports.
Yeah, so the communication was immediate from those 2 teams specifically. It was clear. It wasn't fully flushed out about all that they're going to do, but it was a first step. Here's some things that we're thinking about. And what I love, John, is it showed appreciation to the fans.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about our favorite team for a moment, because it is Locked On Angels, right?
That's what we do. That's what we do, Michael.
The Angels have remained silent.
Yeah.
Artie Moreno didn't even talk to Ron Washington, according to Ron Washington, before his option wasn't picked up.
Yeah.
No conversation with the manager of the team that you hired, you brought in. No conversation.
You picked up from the airport and gave him the, the luxury tour. Yeah.
Yeah. Even after his health issues, you didn't say a word to him. You had somebody else do it. So the question is, why the radio silence? What does this say, John, about our favorite team and those who are on top and leading this organization for our favorite team?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is we haven't thought that far ahead, right,
Yeah.
Mike? That's been the theme of this season. And when I say we haven't thought that far ahead, it points to the Angels not having a plan. And when's the last time they had a plan, Mike? Well, this year's plan was, hey, we're going to be competitive. We're going to try to get to the playoffs. And you want to know what the plan was before that? Hey, we're going to be competitive and we're going to try to get to the playoffs. And then you know what it was 3 years ago in 2020?
Tell me.
We're going to be competitive and we're going to try to get to the playoffs. We go year by year with this team.
Yeah.
Year by year with this club. There's never been a long-term plan. There's never been a long-term vision for this team. It's why we've gone through GM, manager, GM, manager, GM, manager, right? Now we're on the manager cycle again, and maybe on the GM cycle again. So to me, what jumps out is the fact that the Angels don't have a plan. And when the season came to an end, it took them by surprise. I mean, what? Only 162 games? What are we doing now? I don't know what to do with my hands, right? That's what they did. They don't have a plan. They didn't think that far ahead. And so they have nothing to tell us at the moment. That's the problem. They don't have a plan. They don't have a vision. They don't have something like Steve Cohen saying, I owe you an apology. They don't have the GM of the Diamondbacks, Mike Hazen, saying, you know what? We need a better bullpen in next season. That's what we need. They don't know. They have no idea what's wrong with their team. Even though it's very clear to all of us, it's all clear to our everydayers, it's clear to fans what the problems are in and off the field. They don't know. They didn't think that far ahead, Mike.
And here's the problem with silence, John. When there's silence, then we get to fill in the gap. We get to fill in what's going to be said or what's not going to be said or what is happening behind the scenes. And that's why Angel fans get so frustrated with this organization and specifically get so frustrated with Artie Moreno. If Artie is so driven by his ego that he doesn't want to get booed in a video, so they take him out of the opening video, right? Then here's the thing that I would say to Artie. Bro, if you just give us something, then that will help us. We will discuss it. We might not be in agreement with it, but it gives us sort of a thought process and not this ambiguous, we're going to try to be competitive. I would love an apology from Artie Moreno saying, man, we haven't lived up to our expectations. And it wasn't like they just missed the playoffs this year. They missed the playoffs the last 10 years, right? And 11 years now. And we've heard nothing. We've heard nothing. It's always been blame. It's been blame on, well, what can I do? I can't go in there and swing. What can I do? I've signed players. What can I do? I'm losing money, right? There's never been any like, I'm going to hold myself accountable here, even though I feel like I've done what is necessary, whether that's right or wrong, another conversation. But Artie saying, even though I felt like what I've done was necessary and needed, the team hasn't performed. And ultimately, that's on me. I've never heard that from him. Nope. And I don't think I'll ever hear that from him. But what we do then is we fill in the gap. So the questions come up. Like, so what's going on? Is Perry going to be a part of this future?
Right. Yeah, we don't even know that.
Are we going to have a manager soon? Is it Albert? Is it Torrey? Or is it somebody that we're thinking about that they haven't thought about, or vice versa, that they've thought about and we're not thinking about? Like, we don't know. We don't know anything. It feels so disconnected with the people that actually pay the bills. It feels so disconnected with you and I and other podcasts and other influencers who are actually in love with this team and really love the players. It feels so disconnected. I wonder what it's like being a player. I wonder what it's like being a part of the organization. Like, does Trent Rush and Terry Smith and Wayne Randazzo and Mark Gubba, do they know anything? Yeah. Because I'm guessing that they probably don't, because there's been nothing but silence. And so what we do as Angel fans is we're going to fill in the gap. So let me fill in the gap. I don't think Perry's coming back. I don't think that they have a plan. I don't think that they're going to sign anybody. I don't think that it's going to be a really impactful offseason. I don't even know if it's going to be Albert. I'm assuming it's probably going to be somebody who maybe is a bit cheaper. I mean, now, is all of that true? I don't know. Because they haven't said anything to us, John.
We got to fill in the gaps. And that's the problem, is everybody's going to speculate and have opinions and things to say about everything that they do. And that's what we do as fans. That's why we are fans. That's why we follow the team that we follow, so that we can speculate and have feelings and thoughts toward our favorite team that we follow. The problem is, eventually you need answers. The Angels are out of answers, Mike. They don't have any. They didn't think about the questions ahead of time. They didn't study for the test ahead of time. And so, again, it goes back to the phrase, we didn't think that far ahead. That's the epitome of this season. It's the epitome of this club. It's the epitome of this offseason. And look, maybe they're preoccupied. They've got the Tyler Skaggs trial going on at the moment. Maybe that's taken up all of their time. Of course, we have yet to discuss that at length, and we're going to save that conversation for a different show because it requires some sensitivities. It requires some thoughtfulness. And, Mike and I want to get our thoughts together on all of that and have that for you as a separate show. But having said that, you knew it was coming, right? Yeah. It was always on the calendar. But like I said, did game 162 take them by surprise? What? No more baseball. What do we do now? And did this trial take you by surprise? Right? Like this is not new, guys. This is not newsflash to you. This is all stuff that you knew was coming down the pipeline.
John, in sports, taking it game by game, day by day is what you say as a player or as a coach or a manager when the media is asking you about the future, whether you're winning or whether you're losing. You know what? We're just playing right now. We're taking it day by day, right? And unfortunately, the top brass in the Angels organization have adopted that mantra. We're just taking it day by day, right? Yeah. Hour by hour. We haven't thought that far ahead. Here's
minute.
Thank you. Here's the reality is that if you're going to lead an organization, you need to be 6 months to a year ahead, right?
Yeah.
Off air before we started, I shared with John something about my real life job, and I'm preparing for something in January, and you were like, January?
Yeah,
right? It's October, right? Because I'm ahead. I'm the leader of the organization. I'm thinking about where we're going to be. I'm thinking about and planning for that. Does Artie do that? Does John Carpino do that? Does Perry Manassian do that? The silence tells me absolutely not.
Now I'm any chance I can get a Michael McDonald reference in there, I'm all about it. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, which coaches are going to stay? Which coaches are going to go? Who should stay? Or who should go? We're going to tell you all about it coming right up.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. It's the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. We make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right means that you can cash in. But Johnny, you tried to cash in.
Yeah.
So tell me what you have on Prize Picks.
Thanks for going 1 inning yesterday, you Darvish. I took him for the over on 3.5 Ks and didn't get that one, Mike. Screwed up my whole lineup. Thanks, Darvish.
Well, Prize Picks is really easy to use, even if you aren't really great at it. And it's simple.
Like
you just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections. It would have been easy. You Darvish. Yeah, of course he's going to get more than three strikeouts, right? But the Cubs knocked him out of an inning. So that was not good. But when you make your decisions, we know you're going to be right and you can win real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. Download the app today. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, unless you're John, it's good to be right.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Look, what you want to do is this. Whether you're watching or listening, you want to make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube. You want to hit that like button and subscribe button and make sure you leave a comment because it's the best way to get in touch with us and be part of the conversation. And you're going to want to do that because there is plenty of Angels news. Despite their radio silence, we know that there's going to be a lot to talk about this offseason, and we want you here for it. Hit us up on social media at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros, wherever you like to social your medias. We're posting on the TikToks, Mike. We're doing that now. So thank you for joining us over there. If you're on TikTok and you're good. I'm glad you followed. You ought to be following. But yes, we appreciate you being part of the conversation and want you to be here every day as some of our Locked On Everydayers.
The dominant conversation this week on Locked On Angels, John, was about the managerial position because we had talked about, like, what are they going to do? And then there was the rumor about Albert Pujols. You and I have talked about Torrey Hunter. But then that also brings up some other questions. Will the staff, the coaching staff, will they be retained, or will the new manager be able to put together his new staff? These are questions we don't have answers to because it's been radio silent from the Angels. So we're going to share who should stay and who should go, talking about musical references, who should stay and who should go. And if we're picking the coaching staff, if we're getting hired as the manager, here's our thoughts. So, John, let's start with Barry Enright. Let me share some stats with you first. The Angels finished with the third worst ERA in baseball, overall, starters and relievers, at 4.89. They had an expected ERA of 4.47. They had a FIP, fielding independent pitching, which is what kind of gives you a sense of if the ERA is inflated or if it's low. This is basically what the pitcher can control. Their FIP was 4.78. Their expected FIP was 4.54. Now, the Angels pitching staff was second to last in WAR. They had a 6.4 WAR. The Rockies had 1.1. That's bad.
Their pitching staff was terrible.
It was really
awful.
Bad. So at least we're not that. We are second to last, but at least we're not that. Angels were 24th in the league in Ks per 9 at 8.05. They were last in the league at walks per 9, 3.90 walks per 9. They were in the bottom 10 in BABIP with a 296 average. So that's batting average for balls in play. So a lot of balls got knocked into play, and they got knocked for hits when they made contact, which is why contact is a really good thing. Angels were second to last in the league in home runs per 9, John, 1.4, almost 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. So this is just a small sample size, just a bite of the stats that are out there. We could do specific players. We could talk about some wins and some losses. But let me ask you, looking at these stats, you and I have been more in the corner of Barry Enright than not in the corner. Everydayers have been very divided on Barry Enright. There's one everydayer that jokes about, hey, Barry comes out and talks to the pitcher and then tells him what to do. And then the next pitch, they get a hit or a home run or,
Steve G on YouTube. Yeah.
Steve, you're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. So thanks for paying attention. The Angels aren't, you are. And that's what's interesting about this team. So John, there's a lot of wins, a lot of losses with Barry Enright. We're more in the corner than we are not. Looking at these just small stats that we shared, would you get rid of Barry or would you bring him back?
These numbers here are the kind of numbers that are going to make you lose your job, right, Mike? And you know, I think about like a 4.89 ERA for the entire staff. To me, I'm like, that's not bad. But then you find out it's third worst in baseball, and that's not good. And when you think about where the Angels have been in the past, sadly, Mike, this is a step forward, especially given last year. And I know, like, even into the years that Barry Enright wasn't here, you had Shohei Ohtani on the mound. And for as good as he was on the mound, it brings a lot of those other bad stats way down. So here's my thing. These are the kind of numbers that are going to help you lose your job. The problem is it's hard with a pitching coach because I think you have to weigh the talent versus the teaching. And when you have talent like you do on this team, and I say that not in like a, ooh, they're super talented, but just like the players on the team. I mean, look, a fielding independent pitching of 4.78, that's right in line with about where their ERA was. That's by virtue of having a ton of ground ball pitchers, right? Or soft tossing guys. A BABIP, batting average on balls in play of nearly 300. That's the result of having a lot of soft tossers and ground ball guys and fly ball guys. You had 3 of them. No, 4 of them on the team. You had Kohanowitz, you had Soriano, and don't get me wrong, Soriano's great, and he can strike you out and get you to ground out. You had Tyler Anderson and Kyle Hendricks. Come on. Like, these are the numbers you're going to get with any pitching coach, in my opinion, no matter who's in charge. Now, I'm probably going to sound like a hypocrite because later on in the show, we're going to talk about Johnny Washington, and everybody knows how I feel about him and how you feel about him. But here's the thing. I think that the hitting side of this team is more talented inherently than the pitching side of this team. And what I mean by that is this. You have guys who didn't live up to their capabilities at the plate. And I think that's the result of coaching. When it comes to this stuff, in terms of pitching, well, Jack Kohanowitz, Barry Enright did not have success with him. And they tried to send him down. They called him right back up. They sent him down again, right back up. That's not his decision. That's front office decision, right? And management's decision. However, when I think about what Barry has been able to do in terms of, hey, let's put Reed Detmers in the bullpen, get him out of his head, turn him into a dog, and teach him to attack the zone, that's where I think you got to get into the nitty gritty. And you could say the same thing about Johnny Washington. Look at the season Joe Adell had, right? I think that has a lot to do with the work that Johnny put in with him last year in 2024. I think Zach Neto has a lot to do with the work that Johnny Wash put in last year with Zach Neto. Same thing could be said for Mike Trout trying to figure out his swing and his mechanics and whatnot. So it's really hard to be like, that guy's got to stay, that guy's got to go. When, yes, again, these are the kind of numbers that will get you fired. But at the same time, the people who are going to make these kinds of decisions have to look at the nuance of it all, I guess you could say, where how did Barry help guys improve? Where did they take steps back? How much of this is just Kyle Hendricks being in his last year probably? And how much of this is Tyler Anderson being the same kind of Tyler Anderson he's always been? Right? Like, you really have to weigh that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, I would keep Barry Enright because I think there's been more good than bad. But it's like we said yesterday, everything sucks with the organization. But when you're at the top of that, maybe it's not so much your fault as it is the kind of staff you've been given, the kind of talent you've been given. So that's my opinion on it. I would at least keep him unless, Albert does become the manager and Adam Wainwright can come be the pitching coach because we're getting all the former Cardinals at this point.
Yeah. John, I would keep Barry Enright, and here's why. The difference between him and Johnny Washington is I felt like Johnny Washington was a lid for our hitters. I feel like Barry Enright is removing the lid. I feel like he's bringing the players up. Johnny, I wouldn't say is keeping them down, but he certainly isn't lifting them up. So for conversation's sake, Barry is lifting up, Johnny's pushing down. And that's why I would keep Barry Enright. Yeah, the numbers aren't great, but what I've seen in the nuanced relationship with a lot of these guys and helping them to get better, I've seen them work on some things. I've seen them have a better mindset. I've also seen Barry work with C- players, C- pitching staff, right? He doesn't have top-notch talented stars, which Johnny Washington does. And that's why there's a difference between these two. I think Barry has earned another year because he just finished year two, right? And so year 3 is really where you start to see the impact that you've had in the previous 2 years. It becomes yours. It's now your pitching staff. They're now your pitchers. It's now your philosophy and your strategy. And it's now year 3 of consistently preaching the same things. I think that he deserves another opportunity. I think he learned under the best in Brent Strom. I think that he's somebody that the Angels should give a chance for next year to be on this coaching staff and to coach this pitching staff because he has been dealt really terrible cards. He's got a 2 and he's got a 5 and he's got a 7 and he's got a 9, right? He doesn't have a king, a jack, a queen. He doesn't have any of that. And yet you see them in little moments with little notches, little volume turns getting better. He has removed the lid, and that's why I would keep him.
I would give him, to me, Mike, it's 50-50, honestly, because I agree with everything you said about keeping him, giving him a third year to really just take ownership of this whole thing. And then there's moments, like I said, where guys, turn the notches in the right direction. And then there's Ryan Zefferjon.
Yeah.
Starting with his sweeper at nearly every at bat, right? Like, bro, you throw 100 miles an hour. Don't start with the sweeper.
Yeah.
Throw in 100 miles an hour, get strike one, right? And I think a bigger difference here, Mike, is when Barry Enright came on the scene and Sam Blum interviewed him at prior to 2024 and said, "What's the plan?" And he said, "We're going to throw strikes," right? Yeah. And they spent all year trying to get guys to throw strikes. And I think, honestly, that's why it took Detmers as long as it did to be like, bro, throw strikes. Stop not trusting your stuff. Have some confidence, for crying out loud. Put your big boy pants on and throw strikes because your stuff is good. It took 1.5 years to get that, Mike. It took him going to the bullpen to get that. But did it happen? It most certainly did.
It certainly did.
And with Johnny Washington, he gave us kind of a, well, I'm not really going to tell you what my strategy is to Sam Blum. And at first, we went, I don't know if I like that very much. But it turned out him actually having an overall strategy Well, that wasn't good, and we'll get into that in just a minute.
The NFL season is right in the midst of heating up, getting exciting. Week 4 is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for all of it. Right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel because you can bet however you like. There's player props, and you can build a same-game parlay, or maybe as the action unfolds, jumping in live, watching that, placing a bet. That's what I love about FanDuel. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more excitement on Sunday. So download the FanDuel app right now and go to FanDuel.com to get started. Again, FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Continuing our conversation on the coaching staff, and it really comes down to two big players, Barry Enright for the pitching staff, Johnny Washington for the offense. So how about the offensive side of things? We got Johnny Washington, the current hitting coach, and under him, the Angels did the following. They were 4th in the league in home runs with 226. They were bottom 10 in walks with 484. They were last in the league in batting average with 225. Third worst in on-base percentage at 298, bottom 10 with a 695 OPS. That's despite having 226 home runs, being 4th in the league. Biggest and most glaring stat is the strikeouts. The Halos led the league in striking out with 1,627. The team that was behind them was the Rockies, and they had 100 less. Just about 1,531. So now there's playoff teams that strike out a lot during the regular seasons. And, the Yankees, for example, they struck out 1,463 times. But here's the difference. Their on-base percentage was nearly 40 points higher than the Angels. So, yes, can teams mash their way and hit a ton of home runs and still be a playoff team? Absolutely. Can they strike out a lot? Absolutely. But it's the stuff in between the home runs and the strikeouts, Mike, the stuff that happens on the bases that really matters, doesn't it?
Yeah. You got to walk. You got to cause havoc on the bases. You got to steal, right? There's a lot that you need to do. So looking at these stats, the question we're wrestling with is, would you still get rid of Johnny Washington? John, I know that some of the pushback for the coaching, for the manager spot, is going to be, the players have to play. And you're absolutely right. The players do need to play. They are not without accusation in this situation, especially on the offensive side. But there's a reason why you hire coaches. There's a reason why you bring in people to work with these players. If you felt like it's all on the players, then you shouldn't hire a coach. You should just hire a manager who's going to be a CEO who's going to set the lineup for you, and that's it.
Right.
But there's a reason why you bring in coaches is to help them identify things where they're lacking and to help them to improve in certain areas, to help them stay on course, to help them be consistent, to help them do the right workouts and swing the right way, to identify things that maybe you're not seeing because your head is in the game. You're focused on trying to get a hit or trying to catch the ball. A coach can take a step back and go, here's what's happening. John, it just didn't feel like that happened this year. It didn't feel like that happened at all. In fact, it didn't feel like the strategy was ever adjusted. It didn't feel like as the game got later, it didn't feel like there was ever a conversation about choking up. I mean, we've heard Mike Trout and Taylor Ward both gave quotes to Jeff Fletcher. My 2-strike approach, I need to probably change that this offseason. I don't know if I want to choke up because it shrinks the bat a little bit, but maybe I need to do that. You're figuring this out? Like those are the conversations
on game 160.
Yes. Those are the conversations that Johnny Washington should be not having, should be demanding. And should be saying, hey, guess what? Make contact. Look at
and
right
have
field.
had before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look at right field. It's open. Stop swinging for the fences. And the biggest sign of the struggle with this team is, John, at the end of the day, when you got to the end of the game, nothing changed. They were still swinging for the fences. How many games were they down by a couple, and then the 9th inning was strikeout, looking, strikeout, swinging, strikeout, swinging? I mean, that tells me that is more coaching than anything else. So I would move on from Johnny Washington.
You have to.
I want somebody who's going to help this team be a bit more competitive at the plate, make contact, and get on base in a lot of different ways, not just trying to mash the ball.
The worst thing that a coach can do, whether it's pitching or hitting, is make their players one-dimensional. And this is what happened to the Angels this season. They were an all or nothing team. As much as you can pile on the Yankees for all they do is hit home runs and that's how they win their games, well, they're in the playoffs and the Angels are not. And they do a lot of the little things in between that differently than the Angels. You got Jazz Chisholm scoring from first base the other night, Mike, to get the go-ahead run for the Yankees, right? JD Haffron of Locked On Cardinals and I, we do game night together, and he had a really interesting thought about the Reds facing Blake Snell and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And the thing that they did wrong was that they were attacking Blake Snell and Yamamoto. What's the quickest way to get Blake Snell out of the game? You make him work.
Yeah.
That guy, how many, that's always been Snell's problem. He throws a ton of pitches in 4 innings because he walks a lot of guys. Because he's deceptive.
He's an old man, Reed Detmers, right?
Right. When you go chasing his stuff out of the zone, that's why Blake Snell gets 9 strikeouts and goes 7 innings like he did the other night, right? But if you lay off that stuff and let it fall out of the zone and you take your walks and you create traffic on the base paths, Blake Snell's done by the 4th inning because he's thrown 95 pitches. And so that's not what the Reds did. They really should have resisted the urge to attack those guys, even though when the Reds put the ball in play, that's their go-to. But that's the thing, Mike. The strategy didn't change from game 1 to 2. And I bring that up because for the Angels, the strategy never changed. They let guys come in and dominate them, guys who shouldn't have dominated them, right? We saw a lot of that this season where they make, stinkers look like aces out there because they never change the strategy. You get struck out with a fastball high because you're trying to mash it. They're going to try that again on you. They're going to get you with that again if you don't change your approach. So if you don't lay off that stuff or, you take it the other way, what have you. I just, the strategy never changed. I think that's an indictment of Johnny Washington and the team, the offensive coordinator and all that stuff, right? I think that's an indictment of the kind of approach the Angels had this season, where in years past we've said they feel approachless. Well, they certainly had an approach this year and it was all or nothing.
Yep.
And that doesn't work. That strategy does not work. And yes, to be fair, there is nuance in the hitting where it's like, hey, maybe he helped Zach Neto take a step forward. Maybe he helped Joe Adell figure out the leg kick nonsense, yada, yada, yada. But then on the other side, how long did it take Mike Trout to figure out what was going wrong with him? Where he was saying that he wasn't keeping both eyes on the ball. It was just one eye, and that was throwing him off. What do you do, Mike? He figured it out in the last week of the season. And the last weekend hit 5 home runs in like 6 games or something stupid like that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But where was that all season? Why couldn't they figure that out sooner? I don't know if Trout went to Jay Wash for that. I know that he went to Jay Wash for other stuff, but all that to say, it's too little too late. And to have these kind of results, look, that's 695 OPS despite all the home runs. That's crazy to me. That's absolutely insane.
It should be like at least mid 700s.
Yeah.
At least.
100%.
Right?
100%. Because home runs, slugging, right? But what brings that number down? The on-base percentage, 298. That's not going to get it done. In fact, you know what I always say? A 300 average, a 400 on base, and a 500 slugging. That's how you should feel about your team. The way you feel about a 300 average on a guy is the way you should feel about a 400 on base and a 500 slugging. Now, do guys hit that all the time? No. But when you see a 300 hitter and you're like, oh, that guy's good. Well, if you see a 400 on base and a 500 slugging, it's the equivalent of a 300 hitter, and the way you feel about that hitter, the results just weren't there, Mike. And so I think it truly is time to move on, especially if they get a new manager.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your next listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. You can find Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Don't forget to come on over to YouTube, get in the conversation in the comments section, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It really helps us out. And it's free to do because, like I said, it helps us out. So come on, give us a little something. Come on over, hit that subscribe button. Mike, What do we got on deck when we come back on Monday?
Man, there's a lot to talk about. The Angels are the best team to talk about in the offseason. Maybe not in the regular season, but there's a lot to talk about. The big question is, are we going to hear from our favorite team? Will they make a decision about the manager over the weekend? We're going to talk all about that on Monday, and we're going to have all the late breaking news. So make sure you are subscribed because it'll ping you. It'll let you know when John does a quick short or when we actually are doing a show. We'll have all the information for you. This is the best place for you to be on Monday on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that. I'm going to make a prediction, and let's hope that you're watching this early in the morning or listening. They're going to say something today. It's an off day for the playoffs. They're going to say something today. We'll see what happens. I know they don't have any media scheduled, but I'm sure we'll hear something as of today. All right, friends, we hope you'll come back and join us on Monday. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Stay tuned. It's going to be a wild ride, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Minute by minute, minute by minute.
Every time you need... Oh.